Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players, uncover their stories, and discover what makes them tick. If you love guitar, music, and the backstory of people's lives, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey, this is Craig. I have a very quick but really important announcement that I'd like your help with. On May 24th, we are going to be dropping episode number 500 of original content, and that's roughly 21 months after I started this show. I'm really excited about that, and I'm really grateful to all the amazing guests that have made this possible, as well as to you and all the support I get from other listeners like yourself. So thank you very much. I'm thinking of maybe doing something special around this event, like maybe doing a Facebook Live event or a behind-the-scenes episode, either on Facebook Live or an actual audio, another episode show, where you could send in questions about the show in general or about particular guests or show episodes, behind-the-scenes questions, or any questions about me or about whatever you want to ask, and I'll answer them. Or, you know, as something else. I'm really not sure what to do here, so if this is something that interests you, I'd love to get your feedback, maybe some ideas and input on what you might like to hear or see, or perhaps I should do nothing. I'm really good with that as well. So if you could respond to this and let me know what you'd like or what you wouldn't like, along with, if you have questions, the questions you'd like me to answer, that would be great. And the best way to do that is you can email Craig, C-R-A-I-G, at everyonelovesguitar.com. One thing to keep in mind, I get asked the question, what's your favorite episode? Literally every single time I meet someone who listens to this show, and I never mind answering that question. But if there's not any more questions like that, then I can't do any kind of a special event. So have some more questions beyond that if you have any. Otherwise, I'm not really sure it would make sense to do something along those lines. And again, I'm open to any ideas you have. Anyway, with that in mind, thank you again very much for all your support. Thanks for listening. This has been a blast. It's been incredible. Probably the most fun and exciting project I've done in my entire career. And I will look forward to episode number 500. Send your ideas and thoughts into me at Craig, C-R-A-I-G, at everyonelovesguitar.com. All right, now let's get moving. If you're a business owner and you want to increase your cash flow, or if you're a label or artist and you want to promote new music, then listen up. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. The Be Fulfilled Journal helps you be more honest with yourself and with others and be more open to handling things you've avoided dealing with for years. It's a 12-week online and journal program that helps you identify and eliminate things you do that are causing you stress and live in more gratitude and joy. It was actually developed by a long-term friend of mine who got sober in 2008, and he's put together a great deal just for my listeners. You get the 300-page hardcover journal and access to the 12-week video program online, plus free shipping, plus membership in a private Facebook support group with others going through the program, plus a 5-day mini course showing you how to let go of stuff that's draining your energy, plus a 30-day 100% money-back guarantee. To start your journey and get all the bonuses, go to BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. That's BeFulfilledJournal.com/ELG. Hey everybody, welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar. I have a great guest with me today with the one and only Steve Stevens. And before we move any further, I just want to give Steve Vai a shout out and thank Steve for hooking Steve Stevens and I up. Steve's obviously best known for his 30-year partnership with Billy Idol, his work on Michael Jackson's Dirty Diana, his Grammy Award-winning performance on the Top Gun anthem, and his work with Vince Neil on Exposed. His catalog of hit songs that he co-wrote and performed alongside Billy Idol include Rebel Yell, Eyes Without a Face, and Flesh for Fantasy. In addition to currently working on new music together, Idol and Stevens continue to tour sold-out crowds all over the world. Steve's also lent his unmistakable sound and style to many hit records by Pink, Diana Ross, Joni Mitchell, Robert Palmer, the Thompson Twins, and others, and on his solo outings with Steve Stevens' Atomic Playboys, Jerusalem Slim, and Bozio Levin Stevens. He's performed on numerous major movie soundtracks in addition to Top Gun, including Matrix Reloaded, Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. I watched that movie with my sons about 100 times probably when they were growing up, man. The Wedding Singer, Heavy Metal, another one I've watched a lot, amongst others. Between 2012 and 2016, he appeared with the supergroup Kings of Chaos. He was also a television personality on the E! Show called Married to Rock alongside his wife, Josie Stevens. He's a member of Deadland Ritual along with Geezer Butler on bass, Matt Sorm on drums, and Frankie Perez on vocals. He's got a signature amplifier with Tone Merchants and a signature guitar with Nags. Steve, thanks so much for your time, and I really appreciate you coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. When Steve Vai asks you to do something, you do it.
Well, thanks. And thanks again.
An option.
Thank you. Man, I saw Deadland Rituals touring Europe in June, and I love the single Down in Flames. Does that mean a record is going to be forthcoming, or what's going on?
Yeah, we've recorded 3 tracks already.
Awesome.
And we actually head into pre-production this Friday to record the remainder of the record.
Oh, that's awesome. When do you expect it to be released?
At some point we're going to roll out singles first, and the album itself will come out this year for sure. The
new way of the new marketing
it is. Yeah, it is. But you know what? In a way, it's refreshing, because it used to be, I mean, you can imagine how daunting it was after Rebel Yell having a big success, and then you have to follow that up with 11 more songs, hopefully as good. And you don't get any perspective because you have to do them in a chunk, and then you turn it in, and doing stuff this way, I think is, you get a little perspective, and you can grow with your audience. So, I think it's kind of refreshing doing it like this.
And it's a lot less stress, as we just talked about a few minutes ago before we went on the air.
Yeah.
Had you worked with Geezer before this?
No, I hadn't. Matt and I and Frankie have worked together with the all-star band Kings of Chaos. And then Geezer actually guested with them one time. But no, I hadn't worked with him at all. I hadn't even met him really. So,
what was it like when you first played together?
Well, that was the thing. Matt, Frankie, and I, said, "Hey, man, we've known each other for years. We've always said, we really should do something together." So we started writing, and then Matt somehow saw an interview with Geezer after the finale of the Black Sabbath tour, and they said, "Well, what are you doing now?" And he said, "Well, I guess I'll look for a new band, So Matt picks up the phone. "Hey, man, I got a player." So we sent over some demos to him, and but we approached it really old school. We said, let's just get in a little rehearsal room and see what it sounds like. And that was a revelation, man, because he is a very unique bass player in that he never overplays, but he creates such a sonic foundation for me. And, just it's like bass plus, because he uses a bit of distortion, and it's at first when we were doing the band, I'm used to working with second guitar players now. And there was it didn't need anything else. I was just like, wow, this light bulbs were going off in my head. Like, wow, man, this could be really, really cool. And then of course that tone that I grew up, when I do a riff or something and he'd catch it, it was like, it's like I was, 16 years old.
Yeah,
again.
That's what I was wondering about.
I get to play with that sound.
Yeah, that's so cool, man.
Yeah, and he's a real gentleman, and I'm such an Anglophile. I mean, I'm such a huge fan of those early 70s English rock bands and the history, and just to, regardless of being in a band with the guy, just to sit down and go, "Hey, how did you record that? So and so," and get the stories and and stuff. And so it's been really, really cool.
That's great, man. Funny story. My wife sends me, she like knows nothing about music we're not musically compatible. That's the only, like 26 years together, but that's not our thing for whatever reason. So, she sends me this article on Facebook. She goes, "You've got to get this guy on your show." And it's an article about a musician who, we have cats and we're animal people. This musician has like stood up against cat declawing. And I send her a note. I said, "I will try to get Geezer Butler on the show." I don't, it's not like sending an email, you know. She didn't realize like it's Geezer Butler. She just read an article about him that he's into cats. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
For each of these people, and I hope this is the only question I ask you that's been asked before, talk about how you initially connected with them and maybe a cool or interesting story about your experience. And let's start with Billy.
Yeah, I was in a band, prior to Billy Idol. We were managed by Bill Aucoin from Kiss, and we actually we went down to the Bahamas to record our record for Island Records, and Jimmy Miller of the Stones fame was our producer, and the album kind of fell apart. The album, the label shelved it. And I said, "Look, I just don't know." I said to Coin, "I don't think this is meant to happen. I'm going to look for, other musicians." I left the band. We actually placed an ad in the Village Voice, guitarist looking for everything else. And about 2 weeks later, Coin called me and said, "Do you know who Billy Idol is?" And by then, Dancing with Myself was being played in the dance clubs. I said, "Yeah, and also I had a subscription to Rock Scene magazine. So they done one issue where they went to London and they profiled Billy and Generation X and a bunch of the English punk bands. And he said, "Well, he's just moved to New York. We're managing him, and you two guys should meet." And that's really, I really have a coin to thank for putting us together. Musically, it's funny because we both came from very different places. I was all about my rock guitar heroes, Jimmy Page, Jeff Beck, and all that. And Billy, coming from the punk thing, was totally not about that. But the common ground was that my being a New York guitar player, I knew of all the, I still loved all the Lou Reed stuff. And by then Robert Fripp had actually moved to New York, was hanging out with the people from Blondie and Talking Heads and stuff. So one of my heroes, my prog heroes, was embracing this kind of new wave, slightly punk thing. And I thought, wow, this could be really cool because, Billy, having been in Generation X for 3 records, I think the last thing that he needed was a punk rock guitar player. I think he needed somebody who had facility on the instrument, but also could give rock and roll energy to it and bring some other ideas to it. So I think that's why it works.
That's so cool. And 30 years later, I'm sure neither one of you would disagree.
It's 37 years.
Dude, that's amazing. That's longer than most marriages, man.
It's crazy, and we actually really get along well and have such respect for each other, and have a good time. We enjoy being around each other.
That's great.
So I don't know why, man. It just works.
That's great. I mean, I'm sure you got a million stories. Without getting gossipy, tell me a funny Billy Idol story.
Well, I learned early on that the guy really I didn't really know much about the music business, and he had already done 3 records, and he was, Rebel Yell was starting to become successful in Europe. It was, in the States, we didn't have much flack about him, being a punk rocker and now embracing heavier guitars and more production. So we got to Germany and we're doing a TV show, and this German interviewer has got this is the Days of Tape cassette. It's on the floor, and he goes, "Billy," he's trying to antagonize him. "Billy, how do you feel now that you're no longer punk rock and you've embraced being superstar and you've left your punk?" And Billy got up and put his foot through the tape recorder and said, "Here's your punk rock for you, man."
Holy shit. Touche, man. That's awesome.
I thought that was, yeah, it's great.
That is great. I never understand why people like want to sit and talk with someone and then tag it. Like, what is that's always weird.
The interviewer loved it. That's
Yeah.
what I want to, I mean, it's strange. I don't know.
Very cool, man. Thank you. How about Michael Jackson? How did you guys connect?
I had signed to, after Whiplash Smile, the third Billy Idol record, I had signed to Warner Brothers, and Ted Templeman was my A&R guy. And
gosh, you don't dick around, man. Ted Templeman, Bill O'Coin, Jimmy Miller. Holy shit! Don't waste time, man.
Well, you can. I mean, as you imagine, after the success with Billy Idol, labels came calling, and Ted is a musician, and also I loved all those Van Halen records as well as the Doobie Brothers records and Montrose, and so I was a Ted Templeman fan. So I liked the guy. I think anyone that's worked with Ted is had a good experience with him. So I guess Quincy Jones called Ted and said, "Hey, we're working on a new Michael Jackson record. We've done the Beat It thing. We have another rock track for this record. This was bad, and we need a new guitar slinger, So Ted suggested me, and then I got the call from Quincy. Of course, I didn't believe it, and I kind of, I was living in New York at the time, and I kind of said, "Yeah, right, Quincy." I think I had been out that night before.
So he calls you, and you were like, thought it was a joke.
I'm thinking it's one of my friends, and he goes, "No, Ted Templeman gave me your number," So that's how that happened. Yeah.
Very cool. Any interesting stories with Quincy or Michael?
I mean, it was the actual recording experience was incredible, and I was nervous because I'm not really a session guitar player, and I was only up until that point really used to working with Billy Idol, and when recording with Billy, it was usually just Billy, myself, and Keith Forsey, our producer. So I'm expecting this big entourage with Michael and this whole thing, and I walk in the studio and it's just Quincy, Michael, and the engineer Bruce within, and I thought, oh, this is just this is great. This is just the way I'm used to work. I will say the craziest thing is when we did the Dirty Diana video, I pull up to the video set and there's a van outside tricked out with mag tires, and I look in and it was open, and I saw all these like a jungle gym in there and plays and all this stuff, and I'm going, wow, everybody's kids are going to have a great time. But it was actually for Bubbles the Chimp.
Nice, of course.
So he brings Bubbles out.
Doesn't everyone bring their pet monkey to the studio? I mean, of course, Steve, interesting.
Okay.
Wow. That's pretty funny, actually. How about Pink? How'd you guys hook up?
Through Linda Perry, our producer at the time. Linda and I were writing with Billy Idol for material, and she was working on that Pink record. And at that time, it was just Pink had a house in Sherman Oaks, and I had a home studio. So it was pretty chill kind of. The track I played on was definitely like in the kind of new wave punk rock vein. So I think that's why they wanted a little bit of the kind of Billy Idol elements of it and stuff. So it was cool. I mean, she was incredible. I mean, Linda Perry is a force to be reckoned with as well. I mean, she takes no prisoners, man. She's tough.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's funny how you wound up meeting Billy. I always say you can't connect the dots moving forward, but you're one of those guys that you said, I had this one event that literally changed my life. And that's really cool to have experienced that.
Yeah, but I always tell musicians, because with Billy, it was a lot about, I had to believe in his vision, first of all. And once I met Keith, his producer, they had already worked together on on an EP and the third Generation X record. So I had to really trust them. And a lot of it was about playing very economically and not playing, say the most, especially with solos, say the most with the least amount of notes. And here I was, a guy who, by that time, I was listening to, Holdsworth and, Steve Howe from Yes was one of my heroes. And to be asked to not use all this technique and basically make pop rock records, I had to trust them and trust the process and respect what the final outcome would be and be proud of it. And I always tell musicians there's a real lesson to be learned there in being proud of a partnership and accepting other people's ideas and know when to. I remember when we did Eyes Without a Face, Billy was like, I don't do ballads, and I had, major sevenths and minor sevenths and all this stuff. And I had to really stick to it and really, I believe in this. I know it's out of left key, but left, place, but I believe that we could have a huge, huge success if we pull this off right and not, and still keep a dark edge about it. Don't cheese out on it. And, but I really fought for that one, and, so you got to know when to pick and choose your battles, but also when to, acquiesce and be a partnership.
Yeah.
A lot of musicians, I think that's why we've lasted that long, because we both do give and take quite a bit. And in the long run, it's worth it, and put your ego aside.
That's really cool. That's a great story. And that's I think the basis for any good relationship. You have to, it doesn't last long term. You've got to back off and give and take, man. As hard as it is at times, you've got to.
Absolutely. Man. And know when maybe you're wrong or ask for help. I've never been ashamed to say, I don't know. I've worked with so many musicians and, because I'm the musical director for 37 years, and a lot of times people are afraid to admit that they screwed up or fucked up or played the wrong notes or, and it's like, I'll be the first to say, shit, I fucked up, man. No shame in that. There's no shame in saying, I don't know what to play here. What do you imagine? That's happened many times. What do you imagine would be here? And I've got a great team to work with, always, producers or other artists. And that's why I think I've been able to work with so many great singers over the years, because I really listen. The first thing I do if I'm asked to work on a song is, what's it about? Guitar players play on stuff and they don't even bother. Man,
that's a great teaching point for anybody listening. That is really like, what is this? Yeah. What's it about? What's
the story? How did you write it? What's the energy behind it? What's the motivation? And, that kind of gives me my blueprint.
Yeah. As opposed to just going in there and saying, oh, you need a jam in A minor. Okay, great. Or because it's like, that makes a ton of difference. Wow. Man, thank you for sharing. That is very, very smart. Married to Rock. First of all, congratulations. You're one of the few people that were married on the show and still married, I think, right?
Yeah. Well, my wife and I have been together 17 years now.
Awesome. So. That's very cool. Congratulations. That is no small feat. What was the best thing to come out of the show? The most challenging part of it? Is there anything you learned from that?
Yeah, the one thing I learned is that I was very proud of my wife, first of all. I mean, it was a comfortable thing because the show really centered around the wives of musicians. I was on the road for a lot of it, so they'd come out and film. So she did all the legwork, and I would just kind of be her other half. The greatest thing about it was that we had an amazing wedding on it, and got to fly. My dad had passed away soon before that, and I got to fly my mom out and meet all my friends and my in-laws and have all the people that I genuinely really love in my life share in something that E-Channel paid for. So it's a pretty dope wedding.
That is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I had a really, and I actually gained a lot of respect for the people that put the show together. There was at no point, at first we were going, well, we want some editing, right, we want approval. And they said, okay, when we do the final cut on the Friday before it aired on Sunday, so do the final cut, we'll send you the copy, and you tell us what stuff you don't want in it. And at first, I was like, oh, and then finally, my wife and I said, you know what, if we're going to do this, we can't edit ourselves. It's either going to be us or let's not do this, And in the end, it was warts and all, but it was very real, and I don't have to look back and say, well, I was, portraying a character or something. So it gave my wife a good platform for her clothing line and some other things that she launched off of it. So it was she really shone on it, and it was I was proud of her.
That's cool. So overall, it was a pretty good experience for you both.
It was, man. I got
family.
nothing bad to say about it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
One thing, as a performer, you do a great job of like being aware that you're in the entertainment business. Like you always dress really cool. You know how to put on the show, and not a lot of people go to that extent. And I was curious, what was your influence? Like, how did you get that awareness, and maybe what prompted you to do that initially?
Yeah, I think it's just, I'm a real product of the 70s guitar guys, and they all looked the part, I just always, my first recollections of musicians on TV were like Little Richard and Chuck Berry and Elvis Presley and the Beatles, and they all kind of had an image, and I thought, well, that's half the fun of living this lifestyle that's I'm afforded to do, and it's kind of like putting on your game face for a performance on stage. Look, the thing is, you can't get on stage with Billy Idol and wear sweatpants and. It's just
good point. That will not work.
It's just not going to happen, So,
yeah.
It's just, and I think it's part of, even the progressive guys, the real muso guys that I liked. My first big concert was Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and they certainly dressed the part. And when I saw Yes, they dressed the part, and I think that's missing a little bit from Rockstar. I mean, certainly the rap game has picked that up, and it should be fun, man. It should be, it should be fun for the audience, and I still subscribe to that. I just saw some footage of Aerosmith are doing their new residency in Vegas, and they still look like Aerosmith.
Yeah.
And they, it's like, that's what people want to see. I believe that. I'm maybe the last of a dying breed, but
yeah, there's not many. I mean, I give you a lot of credit because it's effort to do, like everything else. It's not just like, it's effort. You got to make deliberate choices, and you got to think a certain way and move a certain way. And I'm sure it's easier now than it was.
It is, yeah,
back then, but it's effort. Yeah. So that's always cool.
But I think it's also motivated by the music. When I get up there and play. Fortunately, Billy and I, our catalog of songs, we're not like, sick of them or like, oh God, we got to play that again, because it's still fresh. We have sections in the songs where we've changed things now or we elaborate on them. But you get up and play a song like Rebel Yell that's been in people's lives for, 30 years or whatever, you can't just stand there and it would feel really strange for me to just stand there and play Rebel Yell. I couldn't imagine. It motivates you in some way. And I look over to my left and see that motherfucker going crazy, and I'm like, all right, let's go.
Best quote so far. You can't just get up on stage in sweatpants with Billy Idol. That was awesome. Very true, man. The other thing that you've done a great job at, and it's the thing I think every guitar player strives for, and that's having your own unique sound. I mean, when you're playing it, it's you. It doesn't sound like anybody else. I was curious if that's something that you specifically worked on, or does that just evolve over time? And for you, what's the most important thing you focused on in developing that sound?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I was in a cover band, and the leader of the band, this was like by the time I joined when I was just about 18 years old, and we were playing three nights a week, 3 sets a night. We did the whole Long Island club scene that Twisted Sister has made famous, and we had the drummer who was the leader of the band was a total gearhead, and he built this quad PA system, and we had Mellotrons and Moogs and all this stuff, and I mean we did parts of like Close to the Edge and all. I mean we were very this was a really exciting time for gear, and at that time I was using High Watts. The sound man had a whole bunch of high watt stuff, and I used, and then because back then it was really hard to get a guitar sound, and so I kind of befriended a guy named Henry Yee, who was an electronics wizard in New York, and I kind of I don't know, I just loved the part of, we take apart the amp and we try this, and then we got a plexi in, and we started mucking around with the amps, and also I was building pedal boards for people at that time, and there was only one company that supplied like multi-voltage power supplies for pedals and stuff, and I used to ride my bike to go get the pedal supplies and stuff and build for people. I just always loved, I think because my dad had a workshop in the basement, he had a wood lathe, all that stuff, so I loved soldering, I loved trying pickups. I was always down at the music store trying new stuff, and it's always been a big part of what I do. It's, I still to this day, I find it really cathartic to change pickups and resolder and put strings on, and it's like Zen. I get in the zone of doing stuff. Like friends of mine that are really into cars, it's the same kind of thing. It's my gearhead part of me. So it's helped me in that sense that I've got a background, and I don't have an electronics background, but I can kind of pull things apart and muck about.
So you were focusing on this at a very young age of life and age of your career. Yeah,
I was fascinated with PA systems and and effects. Actually, when this is a funny story. Right before I joined Billy Idol, Electro Harmonics had a contest on 48th Street for a product tester, and you walked in, and there was literally like 50 guys online to do this, and they had about 8 pedals on the floor scattered around, and your job was to plug in, put them in the order you want, and demo them. And you only had like 15 minutes to do this, right? So I did it, and then I never heard another word about it. And then I met Billy Idol, and go off, and we did the first record. And then Electro Harmonics placed an ad in the Village Voice, and they're looking for me. You got the job.
Holy shit.
I had to call Mike Matthews back and say, hey, I'm making records now. I'm really, I'm honored, but
that's really cool. That is a really cool story.
Yeah,
that is so cool, man.
Yeah.
What are you working on now that you're excited about?
So yeah, this Friday we start pre-production with Deadland Ritual, and I've been writing for that. We've probably got about 10 or 11 songs, and it's the first series of recordings were really fun, and we go into none of this file sharing or any of this stuff. There's no no sending in tracks. We go into a room Greg Fiedelman is the producer who does. He had actually engineered the last Black Sabbath record, so that's kind of the Geezer connection. But he does Slipknot and a bunch of other like heavy guitar records. So it was really cool for me to work with him because he's a real guitar guy. So I never had to like. In other situations, I'll bring my own mics in, or even sometimes preamps and stuff if I think we might need it. I never even asked what mics he was using. It was just like I just let him handle it, and I said, bring whatever amps you might have had really good success with recording, and that was really
makes your life easy.
Yeah, I didn't have to think about. I could just play guitar and write music. So it was really cool. There's a really good vibe, and it's nice for me to play heavy guitar in a band, but still, it's still I still subscribe to the notion of well arranged stuff. I'm really into arranging, and it's not just like. All right, let's just play a riff or something. There's a lot of artistry on the part of all of us, and Frankie Perez is like an undiscovered gem, the singer, and I'm really proud to give him a platform to hopefully, expose him to a lot more people. I did a solo tour in Europe last year, and he was the singer on that. And when I was doing press, I said, look, the guy you're going to walk away talking about is Frankie, And so it's really cool. And Matt is just an incredible drummer. And I always want, that's the one thing I never was in a dream band, the kind of band that I'd go see, be it, Jeff Beck group or Zeppelin or something, or I just always envisioned myself as a member of a band of really strong, where everybody else is, up to that same level of musicianship that I strive for. And in this band, everybody's got an identifiable, unique thing about them, and we definitely don't sound like anyone else. We have a unique thing going on, so it's fun. It's something new for me, believe it or not. I've been making records for 37 years. This is a new chapter, so it's cool.
That is cool. And the music was great. Like I said, the one track you guys did it's a melody, it's heavy, but it's a song, man.
Yeah.
It's
I think if you're gonna do non-instrumental music or even instrumental music, I mean, what makes Vi and Satriani so great is they still have the gift of melody.
Yeah.
You walk away, you listen to it and go, I know, it touches you in some way, because even though there's not a singer, there is that melodic element to it. So I think that's really important in all kinds of music.
No, I totally agree. Well, this is a tough one. Top 3 experiences you've had musically. Knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, obviously the success of Rebel Yell was incredible. We were oblivious to it. We were really dumb and just, we started the tour behind that record in a van, just like the way we always did it. Then we got a bus, and then lo and behold, we got to Los Angeles, and we played Santa Monica Civic, and we go, wow, we must be doing okay. And then,
sort of, yeah.
We didn't know. Nobody, I mean, to this day, I don't read Billboard charts or any of it. I've never done that stuff. So it was just, audiences grew, and the tour finished at Nassau Coliseum, and it was great to have all my friends there and my family, and to end on such a high note. So that was pretty amazing. Winning a Grammy for Top Gun. I think more so for my family than, all those years of putting up with that racket I was making somehow made it a little bit easier. It soothed it a little bit, and they were very proud. And it was, I was also performing with Billy Idol on the Grammy Awards that year. So it was, an incredible evening, and, one that, it was because we were nominated against such kind of, his best pop instrumental, and the other people nominated were definitely not rock or anything. So I really felt like I was representing, when we got up there, these guys are looking at me like, who the fuck? So that was quite nice. That was really cool. Third experience?
Yeah, top 3.
I couldn't say an experience. I mean, I think the fact that I still work with Billy for 37 years is something both of us are proud of. I can't say it's an experience, but to have that it's unheard of in my business to have that kind of longevity with someone.
With one person, with 2 you guys together, that is unheard of. You see guys, that is unheard of, man. Really, that is a lot.
And still, we just finished doing an unplugged tour, just the 2 of us on stage for 2 hours, and it was really cool. It was really a lot of fun, and the Billy Idol fans really got something out of it, I think, and it was so to be able to do that, 2 guys on stage after 37 years and just play our songs with no accompaniment. That was really quite astounding.
It really is. So you grew up in Brooklyn, right?
No, Queens. I was born in Brooklyn.
Okay.
Grew up in Rockaway. It was great. I mean, what a great place to grow up as a kid on the beach. When I tell people I'm from New York, but I'm a beach kid, they go, what? But every summer on the beach, it was a really beautiful place to grow up. It started to become a shithole after, many, kind of in the 70s. I mean, New York, it's really in bad shape in this.
Oh, it's horrible, man.
So I moved from there to West 30th Street, right by Madison Square Garden, in a loft with my band, and that
in the 70s.
Oh yeah!
Oh my God! Yeah, that was shithole.
Oh, there were stabbings and all this crazy shit going on, and you didn't go out at night. It was 8th Avenue and 30th Street. And,
that was just like the tip of, like, I guess, Chelsea or something right? Or was it Hell's Kitchen?
Yeah, Hell's Kitchen.
South of Hell's Kitchen. Yeah, man. Holy crap! Yeah, that was bad back then.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly, and of course, me and the other guys, this was the days of Quaaludes. We'd take Quaaludes and go hang out on 42nd Street. And like, what are we thinking?
Do you remember the arcade that they used to have there, man?
It's exactly where we would go.
Yeah, and I remember going there for fake ID. I would buy fake.
Yeah.
That's funny, man.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly during them, but builds character.
No, it does build character, and there is a takeaway from that for sure, man.
Yeah.
You mentioned your dad had a workbench. What kind of work did he do?
Well, he was an offset printer. He used to work at when I was a kid. He used to print the Sweet and Low packets, and actually the factory is still there. Cumberland Packaging is in Brooklyn.
That's amazing.
But when he worked there, they discovered there was an ingredient called cyclamate, which they found caused cancer, and they had to eventually change it. But my dad didn't want to be a part of anything like that. He left the company.
Wow, that's a pretty good ethical teacher there, man.
He was just a printer, but it became known that this was a carcinogenic, and in good conscience, he ended up. So he kind of drifted around to other jobs. He worked in New Jersey a lot, and it was always. I remember, the one thing I always remember about my dad, his hands were always stained blue because he worked on it, and my mom would, they'd have to go out to a social event or something, and she was embarrassed or whatever because he was definitely blue collar, blue hand.
Yeah.
And I was always proud of that. I thought the fact that my dad worked with his hands was really admirable. And always there wasn't a tool, or there wasn't anything in the house he couldn't fix, or a tool he wouldn't teach me how to use. So I learned a lot from him. I think that's where I got my gearhead kind of aspect. And my brother's an industrial designer, so we both kind of went into areas of using your hands and being hands-on with things.
What a great ethical role model to say, hey, I'm this isn't, you know what I mean? To say this doesn't suit. I mean, that's as a you know, I don't know if you have kids, but as a dad, I think about that. That's a real impactful lesson that had on you, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, my dad was the one that brought the guitar in the house for himself. Initially, he bought it and it was $30. It came with a Burl Ives.
Burl Ives, I remember that guy. Yeah.
Right? My dad loved Burl Ives, these old folk songs and stuff. So he brings this thing home, but he's working his ass. So he don't have time to learn the guitar. So I drag it into my room and I'm banging away on it. But this was there was a protest singer that came from my neighborhood named Phil Oakes.
Oh, yeah.
And Phil's sister was my first guitar teacher. And she said, you know, he's making a hell of a racket, but it's in time. It's got rhythm, you know. So I just kind of, you know, my dad, I think, you know, he saw I was going to put in the hours, whereas he didn't have the time to do it. But no one in my family ever played an instrument or anything. But my dad had great taste in music and had an unbelievable record collection. You know, my very first show that I ever saw my parents brought me to, I was 8 years old, was a Dave Brubeck show. And
oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, you know, it was, you know, my dad and I really shared music a lot. I remember when he brought home in '68, he brought home this Moog record, and it was called, it was a famous pianist. Everybody's going to laugh. His name's Dick Hyman, for real, right? Yeah. And it goes, Dick Hyman plays the Moog, right? My dad brought home this record, and it's this, you know, I think this might have been around the same time as Switched On Bach, the Wendy Carlos thing. And I was just like, what is that? And my dad goes, it's this new music. It's a computer electronic instrument, da-da-da-da-da. And then I went and bought, you know, a year and a half later, get the first Emerson, Lake and Palmer record, and I put it on. I go, Dad, that's that instrument you were talking about, you know. So it was really cool to kind of like share that, you know, like here's my guys are using it now, you know.
Yeah.
So we always shared music. I remember you know, I loved. I used to get mad because, you know, I was a huge Yes fan. I loved Steve Howe. So I'd go to see Yes, and my parents would, oh, you going to see Kiss? No, it's Yes. They're real musicians. Right? But years later, I befriended Chris Squire, and my parents were living in Florida by then, and I flew down and I brought my parents to see the Yes show and hang out and have dinner with Chris, who was a big musical hero of mine, and it was just great, and they got it, you know. They saw it and they were, oh, now I know why you love this band, you know.
Incredible,
it was pretty, yeah.
What are you self-taught, or did you go to school for guitar? Or?
I mean, I had one really great teacher who helped me get into the high school performing arts, the Fame School.
Yeah.
So he prepared me for it, and he was a classical and jazz. He was actually the chorus teacher in my junior high, but he was a really accomplished guitar player. And he, as far as like reading music, I would say that was the closest I got to actually being able to read classical music. And I don't read anymore though, but I don't know if I didn't have the patience or wasn't disciplined enough to do it. But I would say, man, it's really been the vinyl records that were my teachers for the most part. You know, every mode or lick or anything that I've learned that's really how I did it.
So you did the old Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours, except probably times 3 or 4.
Yeah. I mean, I was always a little kid, you know, and I didn't play football. I was too small for that. I was too short for basketball, you know, and it was, I don't know. I was just a weird little kid that liked to be on his own. You know, I had friends and stuff like that, but it never bothered me when my other friends were out playing to be in my bedroom learning songs off a record or something, because it was all worth it the moment they came over and I could play Led Zeppelin, I could play, Stairway to Heaven and sound like the record. My friends would they'd be dumbfounded, like, how did you do that? Well, I sat and listened to it,
But so are you an introvert by nature then, or?
Yeah, I'm not, I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, I was definitely not as a kid. I think because, I'm only 5'5", so I always had to stand up for myself.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I wasn't going to be taken advantage of. And I hung out with there was a lot of mixed race kids in my neighborhood. So my best friend was half Puerto Rican black, and he turned me on to a lot of really cool things, Curtis Mayfield and all this stuff. So I was a tough little kid, and I definitely was, you really had to hustle to make anything for your career in New York. And I would just go everywhere and be everywhere. But now I get tired of people who have too much mouth, Sometimes I just don't, my wife is definitely more outgoing than I am. And I think I've fallen into that relationship because she handles the business as well. I don't really want to deal with the business.
It's great if you got someone you can trust to handle the shit that you don't like, man.
Exactly.
That's the best.
I don't get a thrill out of reading contracts or anything. Some musicians do it and they're very good at it, and that's just never been my thing. So it's allowed me to just make music, and I don't know if that's being an introvert or not. I'm certainly not an introvert on stage, but I'm really comfortable on stage because it's just like, I don't know, it's the most comfortable I'm ever at, because I guess I'm so used to that adrenaline rush, and it's incredible what being on stage in front of people do for you. I fractured my wrist at the beginning of a tour, and I literally, they put a temporary cast on it. I didn't miss one show and played the entire rest of the tour with a fractured wrist. I'd get off stage, I'd be in excruciating pain, but for the 2 hours I was on stage, I didn't feel any pain. It's the weirdest thing.
No, I can see, man, because when you're playing guitar, it's just such a, like the ultimate in the moment. And when you can play like you and express, I can't play a guitar and express what I'd like to express because I don't have the vocabulary. But when you can do that, I got to believe it's the most freeing, because I feel like that. And I'm so limited in my vocabulary. You know what I'm saying? So I got to believe it's just like, could give a shit what's going on in the world.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a great feeling. And also, to play music in front of people that, we do meet and greets, and I can't tell you how many times people come up to Billy and I and say, I remember, being in my house and putting on White Wedding and my parents saying, shut that shit off, da, da, da. And now their parents are no longer in their lives. They've passed on. So they come and see us, and it really reminds them of so many deep memories and deep emotions, and people have gotten married to our music or whatever, or even there's a song that we do called Ghosts in My Guitar, which is off the last record we recorded, and Billy's dad actually passed away listening to that song, and and so now when we play it, it's got a lot of deeper sentiment to it amongst
yeah.
I kind of look over at him and your dad liked this one.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of emotion in the show, a lot of we remember it's funny with Billy and I, we remember all the good stuff because we never, there was a period of time where I didn't work with him. He moved to Los Angeles. I signed my own deal and did Atomic Playboys, but we never slagged each other off. It was never a bitter thing. It was like, okay, I want to do my own thing. I want to express myself. And it enabled us to come back and not have to apologize for saying shit that we really shouldn't have, because we didn't say it.
That's great.
So we didn't have to repair a broken relationship. It was just, we just picked back up again.
That might be a first for the music industry.
Yeah. I think, you know what it is? We very rarely talk business.
Yeah.
We talk about records. We talk about our childhood. We talk about the first show we saw, or very rarely do we, we have managers to deal with that stuff. And, but I think that's what's really saved us, is there's never been, any of that kind of stuff between us.
That's great.
I think also because it's Billy Idol, it's ultimately his decision to, I can suggest things, and it makes things, I think when there's a band situation and everyone's an equal partner, there's more fighting,
Yeah.
Because everyone is like, no, I'm, they all have a corporate account, and who's taking money out of the account. And, we don't have any of that problems. We have separate, our monies are separate, and so I think in a way that's why it's worked.
Yeah. 'Cause your roles are fixed. There's no, I totally get that, man.
Yeah. I mean, it's ultimately it's his, it's his record deal, although, I'm always compensated and part of it, but ultimately the decision comes down to him. What, I can suggest things, and if, like I said, if I'm really willing to go to bat for something, a song that I really believe in, I can be a pain in the ass, man.
But if prior experience, you got a track record at this, so it's not like you're just pulling this out of your ass.
And I think he knows now that if I'm, my after 37 years, my intentions are to make him look good. It's not about, or make us look good.
Yeah, it's not about my guitar solo. Yeah.
It's never been about that. I really got to, I hear recordings of the tour that we did in '87, and I'm like, there's a lot of masturbatory guitar at that time, and I'm like, what was I thinking? Solos are going on, and I'm like, wow, amazed I didn't get fired.
Hey, let's talk about gear for a few minutes. What's your go-to guitar right now, and what other 2 or 3 guitars would round out your top?
Well, I've been with Nags Guitars, 8 years now, I think. I used to have an endorsement in the 80s with Hamer Guitars, and we had a signature guitar. And one of the guys, the marketing guy, was Peter Wolf. And towards the end of the 80s, I was looking for more kind of, the Hamers were definitely rooted in a Gibson style guitar, glue-on neck, kind of like a Les Paul Jr. And I was looking for more of a super strat type guitar. I had been given a Charvel that I really liked, and it was just like a one-off, kind of thing. And it became the guitar. That Charvel was the guitar that I recorded Top Gun with, and it became my recording guitar. It just had some mojo about it. And Hamer tried to replicate it, but they really weren't set up to do that kind of guitar. So I left the company, went to Washburn, who did replicate that guitar quite well. But and I had an endorsement with them. What they didn't tell me was that they were going to do a lower price point version made in Korea of that guitar. And I started to get letters from people saying, why is your name on this guitar that's really not very good? And I said, what are you talking about? And then I called up the company and go, what's this guitar? And they said, oh yeah, it's the Korean one. I didn't agree to that. I won't put my name on something that I won't play myself. It's really, that's not fair. So I left the company, and that was in the early 90s, and I hadn't had a guitar endorsement until 8 years ago when Peter Wolf called me up and said that he was working with Joe Nags, who was the head of the custom shop at PRS. And I had a PRS that I had been playing for quite a while that evidently Joe made. So they sent me a guitar, and I said, well, no, it's not exactly what I want. And they said, well, we'll build you anything you want. And that was the beginning of a really fruitful partnership with them, and I feel like a kid in a candy store, because anything I can dream up, they'll build for me, and they never say no. I mean, a big one for me was the on my signature model. I wanted their guitars ordinarily don't have that steep headstock angle on them because makers, it's a stress point.
Yeah.
You drop the guitar, it's going to break there. But it's such an important part of the tension and the sound of the guitar. And I was adamant, and I said, look, if someone's going to spend the kind of money for a handmade guitar here, and they don't take care of it, I don't see it's like I have to, I have to weigh what the guitar actually feels like and performs like before my worry about it needing a repair.
Sure.
I've probably owned 40 Les Pauls, and I've only had to repair once, and it was a stupid mistake. But I take care of my guitars. So,
sure.
So they agreed to do that. That was the only part where they were like, "Oh man, we're going to get broken guitars in." They've only gotten one, and they repaired it. So that was like, I realized this company will do anything I want. So before I went out for the Unplugged show, the tour with Billy Idol, I asked them to make me an acoustic guitar, and we're now going to introduce one. It's just, that's the kind of relationship we have. Okay, here's an idea. I want this. Da 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 da. What do you? Okay, we'll build it. And it's really cool to see them do well. They're an American company.
Yeah.
There's only about 14 people that work there. Entirely handmade. A percentage of all of my guitars goes to music cares.
Music cares for addiction, man. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I spoke to a lot of guys that they put music cares, put them through rehab, man. Great organization.
Yeah, really, really good cause. So, it works for me, and I try and wave the flag to people that this is a really special company, and then let's see, amplifiers. I have a Friedman model amp, Dave Friedman.
Yep.
Friedman model guitar amp out that we're actually going to revise. We're going to do a new version of. We've learned some things since the last one, and Dave has been my guitar guy. He does all my racks and all this stuff, and he's just got great ears. He's one of those guys I really trust, and I don't have to get into the minutia of, well, I think we need to boost 10K on this. It's like, I can just go, that kind of Michael Schenker thing, that first Scorpions record, that Gilbert Roth solo. How do we get that? And he'll listen to it and go, oh, okay.
And he'll make it.
Yeah. And then there's a company called J Rocket, which I have a boost pedal with. And also their entire line, 10% goes to children's cancer care.
That's really cool.
So it's good to work with people that are trying to make a difference and help some charities and stuff.
It's funny. I got a couple of the Nags guys. I listen to the show regularly because they'll comment on my Instagram. So I see them once in a while.
Yeah.
Favorite players you've enjoyed jamming with? And God, I can't imagine how many you've.
Wow. Billy Gibbons is great to play with. And he's one of those guys, and I've gotten up with Billy probably a dozen times now. And I've gotten up with him and jamming and with some real gunslingers up there, shred monsters, and we're trading off, and it comes to Billy's time, and he's still Billy Gibbons. He will actually play slower just to show a marked difference between what he does and what these guys who are all trying to.
So instead of trying to out shred or scream louder, he whispers.
Yeah, and he kind of, what it is he's such a good band leader that he'll telegraph with his body language that he's going to go into something and it's get quieter, and the whole band gets quieter, and it's so much more effective than these guys that are shredding and the drummer's going crazy because he hears the guy shredding and they're all. And Gibbons is just the opposite. He's a master of very economical but really meaningful playing. He's just he's just a one-of-a-kind human being. He's one of the nicest guys, man. It's just anytime I can work with Billy Gibbons, I'm like, yeah. So he's a absolute gem to jam with, working with Tony Levin and Terry Bozzio was pretty. That was like, as Zappa would say, shut up and play your guitar, and the records that we did were totally improvised. So they're kind of, from my point of view, warts and all. And I was just, but once again, Tony was such an integral part of that, because Terry and I can play very we can crawl up our own butts if
right.
give it enough rope. But Tony really understood what was needed from the bass and Chapman stick side, and really glued it all together. I don't think there's any other bass player that we could have gotten to make that music cohesive.
Best guitar and best amp you've ever played?
Well, I believe my Nags is for me, it's the only, because I designed it and I kind of like put in everything that I've wanted. But I did play, I was at, That Said.
This is what I was waiting for. Thank you.
That Said.
You had to pick up this guitar with this guy at this time. It was like,
I was at Chicago Music Exchange a couple of months ago, and they had one of Rick Nielsen's. They had his Explorer from Live at Budokan, and also one of his '59 Les Pauls there. And through the shittiest little amplifier, these were two of the most incredible sounding instruments I ever heard. It was almost like. You ever know, like, you'll hear records, or people will go, how does Jimmy Page manage to sound so heavy with such a clean guitar tone or whatever? A lot of it is these instruments, because they almost had their own growl and distortion built into it. It was such a, I don't know if it's age or whatever, but such a symbiotic relationship between the sound and the feel of the guitar, that they're, and I used to be one of those guys, you can make guitars now just as good as it. And for the most part you can, but there was something really special about these guitars. Also the amount of times that probably he's played Cheap Trick songs through them, and jumped around in the, checkerboard suit. There's a lot of history in those instruments. Yeah. So, that was pretty special.
Very cool. You ever sell a guitar you wish you can get back?
Nah.
No.
Not really, no.
Desert Island Discs, top 3, just for now, knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, Close to the Edge by Yes.
That's the third time you've mentioned that disc. Obviously, you like it a lot, man.
Oh yeah, no, it's a big one for me. It's the pinnacle of progressive rock, and that whole thing. Maybe Kinda Blue by Miles Davis. Better pick another one. Stravinsky, Rite of Springs, maybe. Because I'm on a desert, right? Yes. I don't want Motorhead on the desert. I want to chill and be one with nature.
You're really thinking that through. That was good. All right. The questions get tough now. Best decision you've ever made, man?
Marrying my wife.
You know what, man? I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
Yeah, without a doubt.
That's very cool. Most important things you've learned about yourself throughout your career experience and life in general?
Most important thing about, well, I try and, I come from a long line of warriors, like Eastern European Jews that, I don't know if that's something that's bred into us. And I've had to learn to let, and I think I read this on your thing as well, is trust in the universe that things will be okay, that whatever decision you make is the right decision and it's meant to be. And you sometimes you can't fight other people's motivations. You're not going to change them.
No.
The best thing I ever heard was from a homeless dude. And I'm sober, and when I was early sober, went to a meeting, and I heard this homeless dude, and this guy, he didn't have a pot to piss in, and said he was talking about being resentful, and something to the effect of, is him drinking the poison and expecting the other person to die from it. And I thought, well, that's me, whenever you have a adversarial thing or a business thing and it's not going your way or somebody's pissing you off, it's like, there's nothing you can do about that. And you're only hurting yourself by obsessing about it or what. Kind of move on and just put out good energy towards yourself and take care of yourself, man, because that other person is not going to, if they're being a dick to you, they're obviously not very happy.
They're not right, and they're certainly not going to look after you.
And I've subscribed to that. And not every musical relationship I've had with people has been so amenable. And sometimes people will say things or whatever, but I've never answered it back in the press or anything. And I think that's served me really well. Because,
hell yeah.
I just don't see the point in that. I see stuff going on, and I don't know if you read Blabbermouth, but there's musicians talk shit. They talk shit on each other all the time. It's almost like they're trying to get noticed by saying, this person will notice this or something. And it's like, whenever I see that, I go, they got nothing to say musically, because I got no time for that. Yeah. If that's what I'm talking about, I got to look at what I'm doing as an artist. If that's what's important. Are you?
Can I ask you a few questions about getting sober? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, sure.
How long have you been sober? And first of all, congratulations.
Yeah, I got sober. How long have I been sober? I haven't drank or anything. I mean, I'm going on. I was sober. Probably about 8 years, solid. And then when I fractured my wrist, I mean, in the 80s, everybody did cocaine and Jamaica and all that. It's kind of like a given. When I moved to Los Angeles in the early 90s, I stopped all that and realized that for me, drinking and cocaine was like intertwined. So it was like,
when you moved to LA, that's pretty pretty difficult in and of itself, man.
Well, New York was such a, all my musician friends had moved out of New York for the most part, and New York's such a nightlife at that time. So I found ways to get myself in trouble,
It's not hard.
Late at night, So I moved to LA, and all my musician friends had gotten sober, but then when I fractured my wrist on the road, I was never into opiates or anything. I didn't even know what they were. And in order to stay out on the road, they gave me, this was a number of years ago, they gave me a bottle of Vicodin. And I started taking these things, and I came off the road. I was addicted, so I had to go in, get treatment for it, because it's very hard to just stop that stuff. It's not like a mind thing where you say, all right, I'm not going to take such and such or whatever, but with opiates, the withdrawals are horrible. And so, that was my slip. And that was no fun, man. I think what's going on now with opiates, I think the way it's being handled is so wrong, because, now the DEA is requiring people to go in and write a script every month. And you have elderly people that can't get pain medication, cancer patients that, they, after surgery, people are getting prescribed Tylenols. Now it's crazy, because the people that are addicted are doing street drugs with all this crap in it now. And that's why we lost Prince, man, because he was buying street drugs and he couldn't get prescription drugs for, he was in a lot of pain. He should have got treatment, but he got some street drugs, and and they have that ingredient in it now. I forgot what it's called, but people are dying from it, and it's really bad. The opiate crisis is a real crisis.
Oh, it's terrible.
But I think the way it's being handled is completely wrong, really wrong.
As opposed to other things the government handles really well.
Very true. Very true.
Let me ask you this. I've had so many people talk about getting sober on the show that the amount of listener response I got was overwhelming, to the point where, like, I'd have people saying, "Hey man, I'm really glad you talk about this because I'm really struggling, and I listened to so-and-so talk about that, and it made me feel better." And to the point where, we put the audios on YouTube. I created a separate playlist for people for artists who've gotten sober. That's literally the most popular playlist for people out there that are struggling. You can't fix this with a Band-Aid and a few words, but any kind of encouragement or difference in your life before and after, or something positive that you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Fuck no.
And there is, I mean, it's if you want help, there's a lot of help available to people. But you do have to, you might have to change your friends. You might have to change your surroundings. You might have to pick up and move somewhere else. But there is definitely, I mean, especially with the internet now, you can go online and get help from people. And it's if you're involved in any of the arts or anything like that, it's not in I was at a meeting once, and a very famous guitar player was there, very famous, who was struggling with addiction, and a bass player named Charlie Hayden was there. Charlie used to play with Billie Holiday. He's passed away now, but he probably had like 10 Grammys, jazz upright bass player. He had seen it all. Coltrane, Miles Davis, saw all of the greats go through addiction. And this guitar player was saying, man, I'm having a really hard time because I'm not used to not, getting loaded when I play. I don't think and Charlie said, you don't even know the potential of how great you could be without being loaded. He goes, you'll never know. You'll never know. And I would say, for me, my connection to my music and to my emotions and my friendships and my honesty with people since getting sober is improved 1,000%. In a way, you become a little bit tougher because you don't want to tolerate bullshit, because if I'm willing to be honest with somebody and say, you know what, this
there
hurts
you go, man.
This is how I'm feeling. I'm unsure about this. If it's musically or artistically or relationship-wise, then if you're willing to be honest with people, you ain't got time for people that are going to lie and steal and cheat from you. And that's what drug addicts do, unfortunately, because they need to, get
need to get high.
Yeah, right. And, so I think it's, and that's, my wife drinks occasionally. It's not, but she's never had an addiction problem. It's just not in her. I don't know, I was like, from the time I was, as I said, 18 years old, I was playing in clubs 3 nights a week and, 3 sets a night. What do you do in between sets? You drink, This is, 1977, man, cocaine was like everybody, when people talk about the 80s, with cocaine, you go into a meeting with all your record execs and first thing they do is put out some lines of coke.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Wow, like it's like a drink, like an appetizer or something like that. Yeah, interesting. Wow.
Yeah. It was it was they used to think that it did, it's not addictive, yeah, okay.
Well, now if they did that, they'd make you sign a disclaimer first if something happens again.
Yeah, I mean, it's people we don't have the money to fuck around with that anymore.
Oh, totally, man.
these were the days of, multi-million-dollar record contracts, and I don't miss that part of it because I mean, it was in certain ways it was great because I managed to make music with people that I loved, but I was always incapacitated if I was high in the studio. I couldn't play.
Yeah.
And that was maybe my saving grace because I didn't record any stuff under the influence. I know it sounds crazy, but I'd always wait till afterwards.
No, that's great. That's like work ethic thing. That's a work ethic thing. But that's only, I mean, I knew a lot of musicians who could get high as hell and still play, but I couldn't do that. Got too paranoid, Man, thank you very much. That was so fucking real and very cool of you. I really appreciate that.
Oh, yeah,
and
sure.
I hope that helps a lot of people. I think it will. 3 questions, man, and then we'll wrap this up. This is an easy one. Favorite New York City food you miss living in LA?
Oh, wow. There was a place, Chinatown, and there was a place, my amp guy, right, who I mentioned, Henry Yee, we became friends, and his family was from Hong Kong, and his sister got married, and he invited me to her wedding, and it was at a Chinese banquet hall in Chinatown. It's no longer there, and it was the most incredible food, and so I kept going back to this place.
What was it called? Do you remember it?
Silver Palace or something like that. It was at the top of a escalator on the top floor, and it was just incredible. It was, it's taken a while for me in Los Angeles because Los Angeles is so spread out, and Los Angeles actually has the largest Asian American community in the United States. But it's
really?
not.
Bigger than like Queens? That's a massive Asian community out there.
Yeah, it's in an area called Monterey Park, and I didn't discover this until about 4 years ago. My wife loves Japanese stuff. We went to Tokyo, and she just, it inspired a lot of her fashion stuff, and so she found out, I guess through Google or whatever, where these Japanese places were and stuff, and we'd start to explore Monterey Park now. So, but I just love that. I don't know. It's also the vibe of Chinatown in New York. I know it's not
awesome.
I always remember, being in. The one thing I do miss about New York is the cold, snowy winters. I know people,
really. Oh shit! I don't miss that.
I know people hate it. I'm like. I guess because it has a lot of good memories for me,
Well, like the city is beautiful when it's snowy. You go through you can see Rockefeller Center. You go to Bryant Park. The city is picturesque.
Yeah,
when it's
and
snowy.
My brother and I would meet in Chinatown because he moved out. He went to college when he was very young, and he was a real mentor to me. And so when he got out of college, he was living in New Jersey, but we'd meet in Chinatown. For some reason, I always remember it being in the winter, and those are really good memories of meeting my brother for a Chinese meal in the middle of winter. Do
you remember that place, Chinatown Arcade, by any chance?
Oh, with that chicken?
Yeah, there's a documentary about it on Netflix, man. Go watch it. You talk about. I couldn't fucking believe it. There was It's a documentary, and they show you like the old place with the chicken.
Oh my God!
It was really fun.
People listening, you have to explain that it was like a vending machine with put a coin in, and it must have had some little shock thing in there, and it shocked the chicken, and he danced. How cruel is that?
It was horrible, but like
I need to see it.
Of course, everybody did. It was so like it was like the unicorn at that. That shit didn't exist, But they have a documentary I saw on Netflix. It's real. It's called Chinatown Arcade. I think it was great.
Oh my God.
Any hobbies or interests outside of music, Steve?
Travel. I mean, it's a big one for my wife and I. We like we really enjoy traveling. I mean, she goes on tour with me, and it makes it all worth everything. And we were just in France and had an incredible time. But we go to Italy and Hawaii, and that's I guess that's kind of a hobby.
Yeah, hell yeah.
I don't know. I got all that usual stuff with the gym and a trainer and all that shit, but I hate it.
You're not like Phil Collins.
No, it's I'm gonna be 60 in May, and it's just a necessary. I look at it as a necessary evil.
Oh, you got to do it, man.
So it's just, but I don't have any love affair with it. It's not like
No, but you look great, man. You look like you take care of yourself, so it's paying off in somehow.
Yeah, it's good for your mind as well.
Oh yeah,
that it's definitely calms you down to help make good decisions, I find.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And last question, biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of this change has been deliberate or intentional, and how much is just a part of aging?
I was maybe not the nicest person in the 80s. I'll be the first one to say that, because I was so, well, first of all, I was, I think when you're Rebel Yell hit when I was 23 years old, and you got a lot of money coming in, and you're touring, and everybody wants to kiss your ass and all that. It's very hard at 23 to step back and go, I'm going to be nice to people,
Yeah, you don't have the coping skills. You don't have, at that time. It's just not.
You have the maturity or whatever, and then I've tried to make amends to a lot of musicians that maybe I wasn't particularly nice to.
That's very cool of you, man.
Well, because I was the musical director. And I've even thought about this. I've had to do this with people that auditioned. At one point, we auditioned 80 drummers for Billy Idol.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
80? Why 80? Just
This was...
what is it you were looking for?
Believe it or not, drummers back then couldn't play to a click track. It wasn't a thing. And we had our producer, Keith, came from the Giorgio Moroder dance school, and of making records that were perfectly in time with clicks and stuff, and it was very hard to find drummers who okay, we're going to give you a click in your headphone. What?
Okay,
and
yeah,
like drift and it. So we were trying to find. Fortunately, Tommy Price, the guy that played on Rebel Yell and went on to do Joan Jett and all that, was just. The funny thing about Rebel Yell was that most of the tracks were recorded with a Lindrum, and because we were trying to find the drummer, and we replaced the Lindrum with Tommy Price.
Wow.
Because we always wanted real drums on it, but we must have tried, half a dozen drummers on those songs before getting Tommy. And the only reason we got him, he was in the same studio with a band called Scandal.
Oh yeah, I remember them.
Warrior or something.
Yeah, I am the Warrior, yeah, right.
We stole him. But that's what I mean. I was ruthless. I was like, hey, come here, and then when it came time after the record, we said, well, you're going to tour with us. And he was like, well, I'm in this band. You don't want to be in that. No. I heard them talking shit about you.
Oh my God. That's funny, man.
So I'm certainly, I would say, a better person to deal with. I really, really enjoy the process of rehearsing and hanging. I mean, I have the best people in the band with Billy Idol, and that wasn't always the case, before our current band, and our bass player has been with us 19 years. Our rhythm guitar player is one of my best friends, and he has been with us, I don't know, over 10 years. But we all really enjoy it. We go out to dinner all the time, and even when we're not on the road. I just I enjoy having good friendships with people, and I've definitely apologized to some musicians that I didn't really give them the time or the respect that they deserved back then, and I realized that, and hopefully, they accepted my apology. But it wasn't that I did anything particularly malicious. I just didn't take the time to care about their feelings or something. And now I definitely care.
Wow, man, you've made a dramatic change. That's really, I mean,
it makes it better, though.
Of course it does, but it's not easy to go and do all that stuff.
No.
And it's not easy to say, hey, I fucked up and I'm sorry. And, it's nice to read about it in the steps.
Right.
But you go do it. It's not like, you can't send a little note. You can't just email it in, you got to like do the friggin' work,
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Well, man, listen, I cannot thank you enough. I've really enjoyed this. You're a very genuine person, man. And I really, really thank you.
I got that feeling from you as well, like reading your story, and
thanks, man.
I identified with a lot of it, and
very cool.
It was good.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, and congratulations on your sobriety. 37 years with Billy, and most important, a 17-year marriage, man. That's really great. You're a hell of a nice guy, and you deserve all those things, and I'm really happy for you. Let me tell people you got October. A residency with Billy Idol at the Palms in Las Vegas. So everybody, it's taking place in October. Where can they get tickets for that? Would they be at the Palms or on Billy's site? Or
if you go to Billy's site, there's links for all of the and we do meet and greets and all that kind of stuff. So
great. So get in on the meet and greet and tell Steve that you enjoyed this interview, and check him out. Also, Deadland is coming out Deadland Ritual is performing in June throughout Europe. You can get tickets to see them all over Europe. I think I looked on there, right?
All over Europe, a lot of festival dates, and then there'll definitely be an American tour sometime after that. And we're doing an initial launch at the Troubadour, but that's all sold out. We might add another date though, so keep your eyes peeled. Is deadlandritual.com.
Yeah, go to deadlandritual.com. I think there's a spot you can sign up for a newsletter there. So sign up there and you get it. And hopefully you guys will come to Florida, man. It'll be wonderful to see you guys. Man, that's it. Thank you so much. Any final words of wisdom?
No, it's been a pleasure, man.
Thank you. Everybody, thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this interview, please share it on your social media channels. We appreciate your support. Thanks very much to Steve Stevens for spending time with us. Again, check out Billy Idol residency in October at the Palms, and look forward to Deadland Ritual, new tracks, and hopefully a record. And they will be touring throughout Europe in June, and stay tuned. Hopefully the US after that. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect. And most important, remember that happiness is a choice. So choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. I'm out. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.